Hello everyone, John Mitchell here, and in this video we're going to go over Jamboard. It's Google Jamboard and how you can use Google Jamboard to help student collaboration, how you can help your students use this Jamboard to work on projects together, how I'm going to show you how they can share and work on the same screen, and how it auto updates. So let's talk about some of the ways that Jamboard can be used for collaboration. So when you talk about traditional chalkboards, right, the old chalkboards that we all know that were in the front of the room. Maybe you didn't have a chalkboard. Maybe you had a whiteboard at the front of the room. The same concepts applied, right? It was teacher oriented. There was only one person typically writing at a time. Sometimes you could do two people, I guess, writing on separate parts of the board, but typically it was teacher oriented. One student at a time could go up there. And really, before the invention of cell phones or anything like that, it was really impossible to save any sort of work that was on your chalkboard. And of course, now you can take pictures of whiteboards and those types of things, but it's really difficult to save your work when you're working on something and writing on a chalkboard or even a whiteboard. Also, who can look at a chalkboard without thinking about the terrible noise the chalk would make when it ran across the chalkboard or fingernails? It just makes your skin crawl, even to this day, just thinking about that noise. So obviously, that's what traditional chalkboards are: teacher oriented, one student at a time, not a whole lot of collaboration, right? So let's look at what Google Jamboard is. Google Jamboard is a digital whiteboard that you can write on, you can have your students write on, you can share this digital whiteboard just like you would another Google document, so that multiple students can work on this at one time. Google Jamboard also offers collaboration because you can have multiple students working on something at the same time. They can share things with each other, they can make notes within Google Jamboard. So it does a really nice job of offering good collaboration. It also has real time editing, meaning you can change things on the fly. If you have a group of students that are working on something, you can have access to that file as well as the students. When they edit something, you can see their edits. You can go in and correct something, and it's in real time editing. Okay. Google Jamboard also can help students with 21st century skills such as collaboration. When you talk about working together on one project instead of having to have one student work, save their work, have another student opening it up, or even like traditional whiteboards, having one student write something, then erasing everything, and then having the next student write up there. They can do a better job of collaboration with Google Jamboard. And then also it saves to the Google Cloud, which is great. You don't have to worry about saving it. It auto saves it. You don't have to take pictures of it. You don't have to take screenshots of it. You can always go back and pull down the Jamboard. So those are just kind of a brief introduction as to what Google Jamboard is. Now let's look at how Google Jamboard can work with collaboration. You can see this picture is an example of a Google Jamboard. Google actually sells these 55-inch monitors that you can buy to put at the front of the classroom where students can actually write on them and students can write on their tablet and you can see that displayed on the screen. You don't have to have that though for Google Jamboard to work. Students can work on their tablets, they can work on computer screens. It's nice on a tablet because they can use their pens to write and draw things. But you don't have to have that big screen that Google sells. You can just work with it within a group of students that maybe have iPads or maybe have Chromebooks or whatever they have in your school district. Okay. So, like we talked about earlier with collaboration, multiple students can work on something at the same time. You can see with this example here of a Jamboard, you could assign a student different colors, yellow, blue, and that could be their work. And they can work together at the same time. Google Jamboard is also great for brainstorming because it's a blank canvas. We'll see when we get into the different tools that it has, that Google Jamboard is a blank canvas, and students can brainstorm things. They can write different notes. They can draw little pictures. They can draw doodles. They can bring in graphs. It is a great place to brainstorm and come up with different ideas. Um, maybe students that are not in the same room can brainstorm together using a Google Jamboard. Also, there's post-it notes, which can work for comments. These can work for student comments when they're brainstorming, can also work for teacher comments. If you want to put a post-it note on something and say, hey, work on this a little bit harder, or this needs to be improved, or this is great work, whatever you want to say to your students, you can go in there and add a post-it note. And so that way they know how they're doing with their collaboration. Some other things, Google Jamboard is student oriented, obviously, because all the students are going to have it pulled up on their tablet where they can make edits to it. You can see in this picture, this is an example of that 55-inch screen that Google sells that students can actually go to the front of the room and write on, and it will update to the other students' tablets and those types of things. And when you're talking about, we talked about it a minute ago, traditional whiteboards are very much teacher oriented. Google Jamboard is students can drive the conversation because they have it on their tablet. They have the ability to edit things as they go along. This also allows for everyone's ideas to be heard. Sometimes students aren't the most comfortable speaking up or going to the front of the room and writing on a whiteboard. So this allows them to work at their desk. It allows them to put their voice into something without actually having to speak loud or do any sort of public speaking. So if you have students that are not, don't can't public speak for whatever reason or don't enjoy it, they can contribute to the conversation using Google Jamboard and just writing into that whiteboard. And again, it can be used on any device. If you have iPads or tablets, it can be used on a PC. It can even be used on a phone. It would be hard to make edits, but if you're wanting to read something on a phone, you can pull it up there. Anywhere that you can pull up your Google Drive, you can pull up a Google Jamboard. All right. You can also use it in Google Meet. So if you're having a meeting with students within a Google Meet that's inside your Google Classroom, you can pull up a Jamboard and you can, like I said, real time edits as you go through this within Google Meet, meaning you can collaborate on something from anywhere. So if you have students that are scattered across the county for whatever reason, or if their assignment is to work on this after school, they can do this from their home and collaborate and get ideas down and build a Jamboard out. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the tools. So when you open Jamboard, this is what you're going to see. It's a white blank canvas. Anything can go on here. You can start with anything. There's nothing really built in. It is traditionally, it is a whiteboard that you can collaborate on. So let's now go through some of the tools, okay? Let's take a look at how these work, and then we'll go into a demonstration that will give you a deeper understanding of kind of how you can use Jamboard, okay? So the first thing we'll look at is the file name. I just have this in as demonstration. You can click that. You can change it. It'll save. It'll save to your Google Drive. We'll go into how to do that in just a second, but it'll go into your Google Drive, and away you go. You can change that any number of times. If you need to do version 1, version 2, right, you can make changes to that, okay? This is the number of slides. So you can see right now, this just has one slide. This is slide 1 of 1. If you click that arrow, it will automatically make a new slide. So then this will change to 1 of 2. And again, we'll look at this deeper in the demonstration. So you can see this is your number of slides. Google Jamboard does limit you to 20 slides per Jamboard. So if you have a longer project, students may need to make multiple Jamboards in order to do that. But I would think for most projects, most presentations, 20 slides on a Jamboard is probably going to be enough because you can really jam pack a lot of stuff onto one Jamboard. Okay, and then you see your traditional Google tools where you can share and that you're signed in. The next thing we want to talk about is you have this tool panel across the left-hand side here. So the top is the pen tool, and that's what you're going to use to write with. Now, if your students actually have a pen or a pencil that comes with their tablet, they can actually use that to draw and write into the Jamboard. So you can see once you click on the pen tool, there's a few options. You have a marker, you have a highlighter, and then you have a choice option of 6 different colors. That's all you have is just those 6 colors. So if there's one spot Jamboard could probably improve upon, it would be to offer more colors, more options for the students. But again, this is supposed to be a digital whiteboard. So if you go to the store and buy a package of Expo markers for your whiteboard, you're only going to have 5 or 6 colors. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through some of this, okay? The next tool you have is your eraser tool, and it works like pretty much any eraser tool. Again, we'll look at this in the demonstration, but I just want you to get familiar with where some of these tools are. So the eraser tool can be used to erase anything on the whiteboard. Then you have your cursor select tool. So if you've selected a pen tool and you're drawing and you're done with it, you can click back on that to select your cursor. The next thing we have is the sticky notes. And this is a really important tool that you're probably going to use a lot of when you're inside Jamboard. So you have your sticky notes. And when you click on sticky note, it's going to pull up this little box. And you can write directly onto that yellow. Again, we'll look deeper into that when we get into the demonstration. But you can see you have 5 different colors there. And then you also have transparent sticky notes, which will just look like whatever background you have chosen. You can insert an image. Again, we'll go deeper into that in the demonstration, but that's the place you would select if you want to put pictures within your Jamboard or graphs or anything like that. And then you have the shape tool. So if you need to draw out some shapes, some squares, some circles, if you're trying to make a diagram and you need some circles, squares, triangles, you can click on that and the shape tool will pop up and you can create some shapes. Then, of course, you have the text box. You can draw a text box anywhere and then type into that text box. And then the last thing we have is the laser pointer. This obviously is something that would be used if students are trying to make a point, if they're doing a presentation within their Jamboard. So the laser pointer is there. We'll show you how that works in a minute. It's pretty cool. Again, I don't know how many uses it would have unless they're doing a bigger, larger presentation with their classmates. Okay, so that's kind of what the some of the tools look like on the left-hand side. Now you want to look at the set background tool. It's really cool. You can do a lot of different things with this, and this will set the background for this slide, and then you can actually put stuff on top of the background. So you can see Google has some preset ones, but the nice thing about this is you can add your own background, and I'll show you how that works in just a minute. How you can add your own background to have students fill out forms or maybe do quizzes with Google Jamboard. So there's a lot of things you can do here. Okay. So now let's hop in and let's do a demonstration. I'll show you where Google Jamboard is located, and you can kind of start to see how all these pieces are coming together. Okay, so let's go into google.com. You can see once you're signed in here, you're signed into your Google account. So you can click here, and then Jamboard is typically down towards the bottom. You can see it's here. If you're going to use Jamboard a lot, obviously you can click it. You can move it up to the top of your tools. You can move it wherever you want to move it. If you're going to use it a lot, you might want to move it to where you can find it easier, those types of things. Okay, so let's click on this Google Jamboard. And again, once you're signed in, it's going to automatically save to your Google Drive. Okay, so you can see this is a recent Jamboard that I had that was kind of made to do some things. You've got your About Jamboard. You've got all your normal stuff over here, just if you need help, privacy policy, those types of things. But what we're going to look at is this plus sign over here. And this is how you're going to create a new Jamboard. Okay, so if we click this, we get what's called a new jam. And here it comes. Okay, so this is it. It's a clear whiteboard, and you can basically do whatever you want with it. Again, you can change the background if you like the dots or the lines, or you want to do a color. This kind of looks like old school notebook paper. You can do a blue background. For this purpose, we're going to leave this white for now because we're just going to kind of show a brainstorming session to start with. Okay. So again, you can add, you can create frames here. So you can see I'm clicking through, and as I create, it creates another one. And then you can go back to the first one. Again, this is only going to give you 20 is the max that you can have when it starts coming to next frame. Okay, and then obviously you have your share tools. Right now, this is only to me. If you need to share that with students, or you want to have the students share with other students, you can go in and add their email address. This is another cool thing, and we'll go over this towards the end, but you can actually download Jamboards as PDFs. You can save it as a JPEG. You can remove, you can make a copy. So downloading as a PDF, that's pretty cool that you can do that, and you can kind of have that PDF if you need to grade it or do something else with it. Okay. And then if you want to title it, just click. Right now it says Untitled Jam. So we're just going to call this demo. And we're going to say okay, and then you can see it's a demo. And again, if you need to rename it, just click it, demo 2, whatever you need it to be. So let's cancel that for now. All right, so let's dig into some of these tools and what these tools can do and what they look like so that you have a good idea. And as this is kind of going here, you'll probably get some good ideas about ways that you can use this for collaboration. After we go through all the tools and I kind of show you how it works, I will show you a way that I came up with that you could use this for collaboration with your students, especially if you were doing, it'll be an example of a multimedia project that you may have your students doing. But first, let's go through some of the tools. Okay, so you have the pen tool. Right now, I just have the pen. It's just black. You can just draw with it. Again, if they have their pencils or whatever, they can write with it so they're not clicking so much. So that is just kind of a click. If you click on this arrow, it's going to pull out the different options for the pen. So you have a marker, you have a highlighter, and you have a brush. So a marker, looks pretty similar to the pen. It's a little bit thicker. And then obviously a highlighter is going to be able to highlight things. And then a brush is going to kind of look, like a paint stroke. It looks kind of cool. Again, you can change your colors on this. So now I have blue. I have a blue brush. I have green. You can do a green brush. You can see how these are kind of light colors. If you want to go back to the pen tool, you can write in blue again. It just changes the color. So the pen tool, has a lot of different uses you can do. And then if you want to, let's see, let's highlight this in yellow. Then all of a sudden now you can kind of highlight. It's a little dark. You could paint with the highlighter a little bit too if you wanted, but it's going to have that consistency of a highlighter as opposed to the paintbrush tool that's going to kind of give you some nice strokes there. Okay. So this is a big mess that I've made here to kind of show you the different options within the pen tool. Again, only 6 colors, including white. Obviously, if you had a blue background, let's just go and see what that looks like. You set your background to blue, and then now you can use the white brush to paint, or you can use the white pen tool, and you can write whatever you want to write on here. Okay. So those are just some of the options you can do with the pen tool. Let's go back. And then the eraser tool, as of right now, just has this one size. So it's not like Photoshop or even Google Drawings where you can kind of change the look of your eraser tool. So right now it just has the one size that you can go in and erase. You can see it, it does a pretty good job. It's just like you're erasing the whiteboard. If you were to have a traditional whiteboard or chalkboard, it's just, it's a basic eraser. It does what it's supposed to do. Hopefully, maybe your students won't need to use this. A lot of times, if you don't want to erase, you can just go to the next one and create new ideas there. That way, your old ideas are saved. So you can see I just erase the whole thing. And if you have a blue background, it erases to blue. On the white background, it's going to erase to white. Okay. So again, this is your cursor select tool. So if you need to click something, or you need to click a new board, or you need to do different things, you can do that from here to set your background. That's what your cursor tool is going to do. All right, so now let's look at a really cool feature that Jamboard has. This is kind of unique to Jamboard that I have not seen in a lot of other things, and that is the sticky notes. Okay. So when you bring up this sticky note, you have an option of 5 different colors here, and then transparent, which will just go on top of whatever you have. So let's say we're going to make a yellow sticky note, and we're going to say, I really like this work. Okay. We're going to pin that onto some work that the student has done. So you click save. It creates the sticky note. You can see you can create multiple sticky notes at a time and cancel that. And then you can move this around. Okay. You can put this, let's say I put this here. You can see that it is kind of transparent, so you can see behind it. So if you want to put this on top of a work, your student can see that. And then, of course, they can go in and remove that by just going here. Okay. You can duplicate it, or if you need to edit this specific sticky note, just click edit, brings it back up. And let's say they did a really good job, and you want to say, I really, really like this work. You can save that here. And then you can resize the sticky note. You can make it super huge. You can make it super tiny, just depending on what your needs are. You can move these all over the place. So you can see the black really kind of pops through. It almost looks like kind of the black is on top, but it's not. It's actually underneath. So let's just put this here. You really like this work. Now let's create a new sticky note. Let's make this one blue. Now, one thing you could do with collaboration is that you could assign each student a sticky note color. So if you say student A is yellow, student B is green, student C is blue, that way you have an idea as to who's coming up with what ideas. Because when we talk about brainstorming, you want to know kind of who's coming up with different things. I'll show you in a second how we can use sticky notes to brainstorm and those types of things. But let's make a green one and say good job. We're going to save that, and you can see that goes up there. And let's resize this down. You can also twist these around, as you just saw. So if you want to spin it, make it sideways, or kind of put it on the side of something, you can do that there. Okay. Now, once you have 2 sticky notes stacked, you can control the order of these things. Okay. So you can say, bring this to front, and the yellow one will come on top. If you right click, I'm just right clicking to get this little box where it says edit, duplicate, delete. Right click, order. Now we can bring this one forward. And if you have, let's make one more so you can kind of see how the stack works. You You can save this here. Again, it's going to put it up there. Again, you can turn these guys. You can do a lot with them. Let's resize it down and let's put it up here. And then let's say you really want this yellow one to come back up. You can order, you can bring it all the way to the front and it goes on top. And then you can bring this one order. If you just bring it forward one, you can see it pops in front of that blue, but still stays behind the yellow. And then if you want to bring it in front of the yellow, you can bring it to the front. Or if it's just one behind, then you can bring it forward. So, it works like if you're pulling sticky notes off and putting them on top of each other. And again, you can resize these guys. You can put them all over the place. You can twist them. You can turn them. Um, you can put them upside down if you really want. So there's a lot of different things you can do with these sticky notes when it comes to either grading or having your students come up with different ideas. Okay. The next thing you can do is you can add an image. So you can obviously put a file here from your computer. You can actually take a picture with your camera. I don't have a camera enabled on this right now, but you can, if you're on your iPad, you could take a picture of something and put it into the Jamboard, or you can, of course, do a Google image search. Let's just search for cats. So if you want to bring this image in, say you're having your students do a project on different types of cats, you can see once it comes in, and even it has a little bit of transparency, right? So it works kind of like a sticky note. If you put it on top of this sticky note and you right click on the order, you can send it back. Now the sticky notes are on top of the picture. And then, of course, you can do like you did with the sticky notes. You can turn these guys, you can flip them around, you resize them, put them in different spaces. So one thing you could do, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in collaboration, is you can create a background that you could say, certain types of cats. What do these cats look like? You could say cats with blue eyes, cats with green eyes, and you could have your students click pictures and move them over if you had multiple pictures in here. Cats with blue eyes, this one would go over here if you had another one. So you could have them sort different things, and then obviously you can see their sorts. If you're going to do that, you would want to have each student make a copy of the Jamboard because they're not really going to collaborate with something like that. So you would want to have each student make their own copy so that they could then turn in their own work. Okay, so that's how you're going to add an image. Here's the shape tool. So right now it's set to circles, so you can draw a circle. Let's go to the next one so it's a little bit cleaner. Select the shape tool. You can draw a circle, and you can see it creates this white circle. You can go in here and duplicate this as many times as you want. If you want to create 3 different circles. And again, if you go to a blank board and you create a circle, it's going to be white. So now it looks like a white on a black. You can create this guy. There's a few different options with shapes. If you just click the arrow, you see you can get a triangle. You can get an arrow, which is kind of cool. So if you need to emphasize something, you could type that, and then we'll go into the text in a minute and show how you could make that look good. There's all kinds of different guys in here, half circle. So there's a bunch of different shapes. If you need your students to make, a few circles to show something that is progressing over time, they could use the circles to do that. Okay, now let's look at the text tool. As you can see, every time I click, it just creates a text box. So that's going to create that text box. And then you can type, look here, put that in the middle of the arrow, and then you have the ability to change this. You can make it a title, you can make it a display, normal, caption, like obviously going to be smaller, normal, and then you can change, again, just the 6 colors. So you can change the different colors that you want to use. And then you can align it within that text box. You want to center align, which this already kind of is, or left align. And then you can make this text box, obviously you can make this larger. And then if you want to go back in and text, you just double click and you can write, and you can put more text in there, and then shrink it back down if you want. So that's kind of how the text box works. You can see if you want to put some text into these circles, just make sure your text box is there. It's going to automatically create that text box. We have it set to left align. Let's just center align it and then double click in it, and you can say circle. And then once you do that, again, you go back, select your cursor, click on this, and then you can move this circle, this text around to wherever you might want it to go. Okay. Now, the last thing is something your kids are going to have a lot of fun with, and that is the laser pointer. You can see it draws a red line, and then the red line kind of fades. So if students are wanting to emphasize this during the project, they can, circle this cat, or they can draw a box, or they can point. You may have to tell them not to use this because they could see where this could kind of get away from them a little bit, where they're not doing anything but just playing with the laser pointer. Cats hate laser pointers, right? You can make the cat look around at the laser pointer. Okay, so that's kind of the tools that you have. You have a zoom in tool here where you can zoom in. Right now it's set to fit. You can zoom all the way into 200%. Like it kind of set at fit. And then obviously you have this undo button. So if you want to undo something, you just go in and you can click and it will undo it several times. You can go back several times, as you can see here. It'll probably go back to even taking all these shapes away. So the undo tool is there for you as well if you need that undo tool. Okay, so now we have an idea of kind of how these tools work. Let's talk about how we can go in and use this as a collaboration. So some practical uses for Jamboard. So we're talking about, so my idea was, okay, if you're having students and they're doing a multimedia project, this would probably be high school or even higher ed level students. They're doing a documentary on a music festival. Okay, so music festival is coming to town. They're going to do a video that covers the music festival. So what are some ways that we can use Jamboard to help collaborate for that project that they have? Okay, so you can see they could do a brainstorming session where they just put different post-it notes within the as to who's coming to the festival, or big name and artist and why. And then you can go in and put your notes. Hey, this is a great idea. Or I don't like this one. That's too much. It's trying to figure out when they're setting up for the festival. That's not going to work. How does the festival impact local businesses, local artists playing in the festival? So any sort of project where students need to come up with ideas, they can use Google Jamboard to put these post-it notes, and that can be kind of where they hang their ideas. Just like putting post-its on a wall, they're coming up with ideas as they walk through this. And then you can go in and you can put your comments on this. Students can go in and edit their comments on this. So you can kind of see how students would want to use this to come up with different ideas. It's a great option for brainstorming sessions because they can remember the ideas they come up with. Instead of writing them down on paper, or the paper gets lost, you can use this as a brainstorming session to write different ideas onto the post-it notes. And then again, you can, as the teacher, can go in and edit. Okay, so now we talked a little bit earlier about backgrounds and how you can set your background. This is a storyboard sheet that we use. So you can use this as the background. And what that allows you to do then is that students can then go in, and when they're storyboarding their ideas, they can put, okay, here's the scene. Here's what we need from here. This is the restaurant we're going to use. This is downtown. Daytime's better than morning time. And again, you can still go in and edit and make ideas within this. So let's go in and let's look at this within Jamboard. Okay, so let's say we're going to do that. We're going to set our background so that our students can, we want them to storyboard their ideas. So we're going to go to set background, and then you're going to go to add image, and then you're going to browse your files. And then wherever you have saved, that's where you're going to go and find it. And it should be right here. And so now that you have this set, this is the background. And so now you can put things on top of this background. This is a really cool feature because now you can go in and say, you can go in and you can put post-it notes on top of this. But that's not the coolest part. The coolest part is that now you can add images on here and text to fill this in. So let's add a couple of images. Here's our cats. Let's upload our own image. Let's say our students have gone out and they have done an initial site visit to figure out what they want to do, where they want to shoot things. They have taken pictures from that site visit, and they want to use that for their storyboard. So you can see we have this downtown. So let's open this. And then what they can do is take this picture and they can resize it and they can put it in their scene. So now they know, okay, this is where we're going to shoot our first scene. And what they can do is then add a text box, and that can say um, interview downtown. And again, you can resize this. So let's say they're going to want to shoot their interview downtown. And let's say the sun is really harsh here in the afternoon. So they can make another text box and they can say morning is better, and resize this text box. And now that is lined up into the notes. And then let's say, okay, now they've decided that they're going to go on Tuesday. So you can make a post-it note, put that post-it note right on top of here. Again, we're going to bring this forward, right? Order, bring forward. And now you have a note that shows, okay, we're going to film here. We're going to film this interview on Tuesday. All right, let's do one more. Let's say they're going to need to go outside in front of a restaurant. So they've gone downtown. They've done a site visit. They know what they want to see. So they've got this picture of a restaurant in downtown that they've taken. They're going to use this Mexican restaurant, and they can resize it. Okay. And so they're going to, let's say they need B-roll of this restaurant. So they're going to say B-roll of outside. And then in the notes, let's say they decide what camera they want to use. So they can say, we want to use the Canon 90D here. Okay. And then again, once they've decided, okay, we're going to go shoot this on Wednesday, we can say Wednesday, or we can make this a different color even. Let's do orange. We've done orange yet. And you can place this on top. And so now you can kind of see how this storyboard is starting to take shape. And all the students can come in, they can add, they'll see this, they can see the updates. Students can add their own pictures. And again, you can set this background for as many of these different Jamboards as you want. So you may, if this is a full feature film or something, you may need to add these to all 20 slides, which is fine. It doesn't take long to add the background. And then once it's there, you're set. So instead of doing this out on paper, having students draw, or having students try to print pictures and then paste them onto a storyboard, you can do this all digitally now, which increases collaboration with your students because they can always access this. They don't have to work at the same time. They can work at different times. Works with asynchronous things. So Google Jamboard is just a great tool to kind of help with collaboration, especially on projects like this. You could do this. You could use this for pretty much anything that students normally use paper on, as far as brainstorming, coming up with ideas, storyboarding, those types of things. All right, so let's just wrap this up. Let's go back into our slideshow here and look at our conclusion. So obviously, when you start taking this back, this is an easy enough tool that you can use this immediately, right? You can take this back. There's nothing in this that has a huge learner curve. If you've used a whiteboard before, if you've used a Google tool before, all these things should be pretty self-explanatory as you try to go through this. This is something that can replace paper and pencils, right? As we're trying to cut back on the amount of paper, the amount of resources that we use. Google Jamboard is a free resource. Students already have the tablets. They already have the computers. You can use Google Jamboard, right? It allows for students to easily collaborate no matter where they are. They can collaborate asynchronously or synchronously at the same time, whatever works best for your students. And then obviously it's easy for you as the instructor to monitor progress, because you're going to have access to this Google Jamboard and see what they're working on. You can say, hey, this group's really behind. They've got to come up with 3 or 4 more storyboards before the end of the day. So you can kind of help them. You can either put a post-it note in there and say, hey, work on this, or you can go to them directly and say, hey, I need to see more work from your Jamboard. So obviously Google Jamboard is a great collaboration tool that you can take immediately back to your students and have them start working on this great digital whiteboard.